Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to you and to Ranking Member Blunt for holding this hearing on a very important subject. And I will follow up on Senator Klobuchar's issues on PTC, but I do want to thank the panel for being here today. And you know, one way we could get fewer trains in North Dakota is to horizontally drill from South Dakota and pull some of that energy back down into our state.
We're watching you.
You know, I've had some experience. I worked as the state rail director in South Dakota prior to coming to this job. And railroads are so important in our part of the country. The reason there's so much interest here, as you can tell today, is that we're incredibly dependent, so much so that back when the Milwaukee Road abandoned the railroads in our state in the late 1970s, the state of South Dakota actually acquired the railroads, not the power and the rolling stock, but the right-of-way and the track and everything to keep railroads active and going. It's the most efficient way to move freight and obviously critically important to our agricultural economy. So for many years, the state of South Dakota actually operated, or I shouldn't say operated, but contracted for operations with some railroads and maintained the track and the right-of-way. So critically important issue in our state and to all the states that are represented here. I want to ask a question, and this would be for Mr. Blackwell. And I appreciate, it's been talked about a little bit already, the effort the FCC's taken to expedite the approval of PTC towers, and I'm also encouraged that the FCC has issued a draft proposal. However, I'm still concerned about how long it's going to take before Class 1 railroads are going to be able to take advantage of this process. It's my understanding the draft proposal was submitted to the Advisory Council for Historic Preservation this week, and that the ACHP will then have 45 days to review and approve it. Given that timeline, what is the earliest date at which you think railroads will be able to begin installing towers under the new system?
So maybe a bit of a challenge to do the math right now, but it would be 45 days from the date of the transmittal. We would be ready to begin processing those up to 20,000 more. There's absolutely nothing holding a railroad back now from preparing the information to be ready to go as soon as possible.
So after a tower is submitted for approval, how long do you anticipate it would take for final approval? And do you have any estimates on how this will compare to the timeline under the current approval process?
Well, we did shorten the, by front-loading the system with an amount of information that's normally routinely gathered, we were able to shorten timelines significantly. Overall, the shortened, it is 40%. We did also shorten timelines associated with initial responses, lack of responses, and then encourage the parties that may have disputes to come to the FCC, and we have a self-imposed 15-day deadline to deal with those.
Okay. This would be for a follow-up question, but this would be for Mr. Hamburger. The railroads have run into a lot of obstacles in their efforts to meet this 2015 PTC deadline, but the FCC approval process clearly has become a big impediment to that. Let me ask you what your overall assessment is of the FCC's draft proposal, and do you think it will help expedite the process for that approval?
I have not personally read what was submitted last evening, but my lawyers who have, so this is secondhand, advised me that some of our comments submitted in the process have been acknowledged, but that the core issue of not having an end date to when a decision has to be reached, there is a deadline on expressing an interest, but not on reaching a conclusion. And although we can file by county, each individual poll still has to be dealt with, and the upfront submission of data that Mr. Blackwell is talking to is, I believe it's called an ethnographic study, where we have to show, prove a negative, that there is no cultural or historic interest in that site, poll by poll by poll. We do not think that this solves the problem. Again, recognizing the amount of effort that has gone into it, and appreciate Chairman Wheeler's personal interest, but we're not there.
So in the interim, the FCC has initiated this beta testing process for PTC tower approval, in which railroads are able to batch these applications, as was mentioned, up to 20 PTC towers in the same county. have railroads made use of that process?
Yes, and in several cases, they've gotten back automatic responses of not wanting to go forward in some cases. I'm told that it's not one of those has yet made it through the process.
Okay. Do you think that I mean, do you like that process? Do you see benefits to that process? Do you see limitations to that process?
We went forward, as Mr. Blackwell indicated, in an informal process in dealing with tribal nations that we knew had interest and have erected 10,000 poles. We think that the rules that FCC has allow that. They have told us that we cannot do that, that we have to work through the TCNS process, and I think that that is a bureaucratic slowdown that is adversely affecting our ability to make progress. I was going to be delivering our white paper effective of 12/31/2013, which we had been projecting that we were going to be able to meet 40% of our implementation by the end of 2015. That's what we projected at the end of 2012, that we were going to be able to get about 24,000 miles up and running. We can no longer make that projection, and so I'm not in a position to submit that as part of my testimony today. We're still going back to the railroads and trying to get what that number might be. And unfortunately, until this process plays out, we don't know. We just don't know how long it's going to take.
And that 45-day clock hasn't started running yet?
It started running Tuesday.
It did, okay. Okay, so we're talking 45 days, middle of April. And then how many days after that? I mean, what's the, to get a final rule?
Well, we could start processing the applications immediately.
Okay, and you're saying if they are submitting applications, doing all the preparatory work right now, that those applications could start being processed immediately at the end of that when that 5-day runs out.
The submission process under the program comment would begin once the program comment became final. 45 days. The ACHB has it for 45 days.
Okay. All right.
That assumes they don't extend.
Right.
I would clarify something, Senator, about the ethnographic studies that Mr. Hamburger just mentioned. This draft program comment does not require ethnographic studies. The reference is to help the railroads prepare materials that, based on our experience, are frequently asked for in the course of the Section 106 reviews.
Okay. Well, I guess the only thing I would say, Mr. Chairman, is there's a lot of pressure on the railroads, obviously, to comply with and meet the 15 deadline, and there are a number of us on the committee who are co-sponsoring legislation that would extend that by a reasonable amount of time, so the railroads have the time to comply. But the FCC has become a critical component in allowing that process to move forward. And I would hope that you will do everything you possibly can to expedite this process, because for a lot of reasons, you know, we need, there's a sense of urgency attached to this. And I hope that that's fully understood there at the Commission.
Senator Thune, Senator Hoeven, the FCC is committed to doing, to tailoring the process in a way that will enable the railroads to meet their current statutory deadline. Fully committed.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I have a statement I'd like to ask consent to have.
Without objection.
Thank you.